Copyright disclaimer: under the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.
And I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave.
Prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
Here is a screenshot here right as she was getting ready to take off. And this officer right here was trying to open the door. She backed up. She turned her wheels as he was reaching in, and another cop stepped up in front. I'm not so sure she's seen him at first. I'm not so sure. But she was turning her wheels to the right to get out of there. And the cop in the front kind of got nudged by the vehicle. He pulled the gun out, and he shot her multiple times. And she was dead. The vehicle rolled down the street and crashed into a vehicle on a pole. I mean, he shot her dead right there. And this is what people are upset about. People are saying that she was turning to the right, obviously not trying to hit him, is what they're saying, and that she could have just went straight and ran over him if that was the case. But the wheels turning to the right, the fact that she did not listen to the commands of the officers is where a lot of things go wrong here. Trump saying that she made poor decisions. Others very angry, saying the tires could have been shot out of the vehicle. A lot of other things could have been done besides shooting her dead. Regardless of how you may feel about this, other people out there are going to be extremely upset about this en masse, especially up there in Minneapolis on the ground. And they're taking to the streets to show they're upset. And it's going to continue. And don't see it dying down anytime soon. Again, other protests erupting in other cities. And this is a dicey one. All in all, in the end, people are going to argue and say she should have listened to law enforcement and it never would have happened. But then beyond that, others are going to say, even though she made a mistake, she didn't deserve to be killed for it. And that's the argument made there on both sides, and it's going to go back and forth. Unfortunately, probably not a peaceful debate. People are going to take out their anger, and what you're going to witness is ICE clashing with the people in the streets big time. This is setting the stage for civil war. Major. Because Tim Walz activated the National Guard to come in and now protect the people. This puts them in direct contact, front line, warfare type scenario with ICE. National Guard from the state boys against ICE. All the other times Trump was using them. This time the state's going to use them. And they're going to be the defenders of the people on the ground. What's going to happen when ICE and the National Guard face off?
2 Esdras chapter 14 and verse 16. For greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim out here pushing his gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the brother Quana Wath come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. You know, and as you had seen in those videos, man, a woman was ultimately killed, you know, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? And you had the governor as well as the mayor as well as the governor, right, ultimately coming out and making their statements, you know, in opposition of, you know, the ICE agents' actions, you know, and basically, you know, governor is threatening, right, to ultimately utilize the National Guard against, you know, the federal ICE agents, man, right? And, you know, which, you know, ultimately that's going to, you know, lead into what? Civil war, right? Because you're already seeing, right, that there's mass protest, right, across America, you know, that, you know, for this situation, you know, shit is about to hit the fan, man. Second Esdras, the 15th chapter, right, is about to play out, you know, because there was also a video, you know, of JD Vance, right, making a statement. You know, matter of fact, see if I can pull that statement up right here in the beginning of this brother's video.
The precedent here is very
right. Basically saying that, you know, ICE agent, right, has immunity, right? Let's go ahead and play this real quick.
simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The precedent here is very...
Right, so there you go. And this is, you know, one of the brothers, right, GMS Inquire Early too, right, go subscribe and be edified, right? But he's basically stating that federal agent has immunity, right? That he can, you know, basically, you know, killed this woman, which again, right, when you look at the video, you know, and everything that happened, right, the federal agent, right, his life wasn't, you know, in you know, danger, right, from what you see in the video. You know, he got nudged by the, you know, the vehicle a little bit, man, and, you know, he ultimately just started shooting, you know, murdered that woman. You know, which again, right, him making this statement saying that you know, that officer has immunity, right, is going to embolden more, you know, of these ICE agents, right, federal agents, right, to continue to do what they're doing, you know. As well as I do want to play Amawanga Bars, the Elder Amawanga Bars video.
Listen up.
Load up. Right here. Yes, right. So, and again, this is the Elder Amawanga Bar, right? Go and subscribe, you know, to his channel and be edified, right? But again, JD Vance is stating that they're going to be pushing, right, for these ICE agents to be going door to door, you know? So let's go ahead and grab this.
I think we're going to see those deportation numbers ramp up as we get more and more people online, working for ICE, going door to door and making sure that if you're an illegal alien, you've got to get out of this country. And if you want to come back, apply through the proper channel.
Door to door to make sure that you're not an illegal citizen. What the fuck did I just listen to? Did I just hear the vice president of this country say that they're going to mobilize ICE to go door to door? And this is coming after ICE just fucking murdered a woman, a U.S. citizen? Seriously? Y'all. What the fuck is actually going on? We said, and I have to keep on harping on this because everybody that supported Kamala Harris, and we're trying to get everybody to recognize how dire the situation was if Donald Trump got back into office with the rhetoric that he was using. We were told we were crazy, we were fear-mongering, none of this stuff was ever going to happen. We even saw that with the World War III shit saying that Donald Trump was not a peace president, and they said that we were crazy and fear-mongering about that, and now we just watched Donald Trump bomb a country and kidnap their leader. But specifically with what he is doing here with these mass deportations, we said the rhetoric that he was using was extremely dangerous because there's no way that you're going to be able to do the things that he is saying that he wants to do without just being full blanketed racist ass agents of chaos. And Donald Trump has no problem with that. That is what he wants ICE to be. But they're now killing white people. That's what's so fucking crazy about that. If they're killing the white women, nobody is fucking safe. So if they're about to start sending motherfuckers door to door, this shit is about to get really motherfucking crazy.
Yep.
You know, Shit is about to really honestly get crazy, man. Meaning second Esdras, the 15th chapter, right? Like we've been telling y'all for years, right? Beginning with the elder apostles of Great Millstone, right on down, right? We've been telling y'all for years this moment was coming, right? We're in Jacob's trouble now, but see, the peak of Jacob's trouble is about to hit, right? Where a mass death, right, is going to encompass, you know, all of the world, right? Let's go ahead and grab that, you know. And again, go and subscribe, you know, to both those pages, man, and be edified through the Spirit, you know. Both those, if I'm not mistaken, right, GMS Inquire Early too is an elder as well. If he's not Salakia, but I know Elder Amawanga Bar. Go and subscribe to his page, right, and be edified. But I want to grab this second Esdras 15 and verse 16. Oh, this is fire too, right? Second Esdras 15 and verse 16 and second Esdras 16, right? But we'll start right here, right? So second Esdras 15 and verse 16 says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." And with, you know, again, right, with these, you know, ICE agents being emboldened, right, to continue to do what they're doing, and you're going to see further protests, man, right? And eventually these protests are going to get violent, right? Eventually these protests are going to be, you know, to the point where these people are saying, fuck this shit, man. You know, we can't rely on the government. We can't rely, you know, on, you know, local, you know, authorities and whatnot to protect us. Hey, they're just going to ultimately go and you know, handle business, man. Right. Again, these protests are eventually they're going to spill over into violent protests, man. Right. As you see out there in Iran, you know, they got violent protests going on. You know, they're ripping and burning the, you know, the Iranian flag and so on and so forth. Hey, that's a foreshadow of what's to come, you know, because these people are seeing how this government is moving, right? And they're already on edge, you know, based off of, you know, the financial situations that they're being put in, you know, just by, you know, again, prices going up, you know, jobs being lost, right? And now they're being, you know, basically pushed into a corner. Right. And now they're going to be going door to door. You know, these ICE agents are going to be going door to door. And we understand that that whole situation in Chicago where you had 300, you know, federal agents, right, come into an apartment complex. Right. It was 100 apartment complex. Right. And basically was pulling everybody out, kids and whatnot, you know. This is what's coming. And it's going to be coming on a very large scale, right? It says a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, right? But I want to jump before we come back to that. Actually, verse 18, "For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled and the houses shall be destroyed. Men shall be afraid," right? It's going to be a time of straight trouble, you know? Esau going to be coming in like a madman, right? Second Esdras 16 verse 68 says, "For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you," right? And these, you can see, right, that ICE agent, man, he was just, you know, he was waiting. He was waiting for, you know, just a slight nudge of that car, and he bow, you know, released it. You know, we're talking about a slight nudge. When you watch the videos, right, you can, you know, a lot of people, you know, they'll say whatever they want about the video, but that officer was not injured, because afterwards, right, you see him walking around. You see him, you know, he wasn't limping. He was walking around, you know. Now, you know, hey, this, you know, very well could be a psyop, right? We'll have to see, you know, what other information comes out based on, you know, the autopsy and so on and so forth, all this information, you know, but nonetheless, you know, that you know, the ICE agent wasn't hurt, right? He was just waiting for, you know, any kind of contact or whatnot, and he just let it go. You know, so they got their fingers on the trigger already. They're waiting, right? These ICE agents, right? And you see a majority of these ICE agents are Edomites. You know, they said that ICE agent, right, was a former police officer, you know, turn ICE agent, right? It says, "For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols." Right, man? Right? Because ultimately, you know, all roads lead to the MO to the TB. you know, and eventually, right, that's what it's going to come down to. Because when they first started this whole ICE operation, what were they doing, right? They're going around and scanning, you know, the retinas of these, you know, these immigrants, and putting little bracelets on them so they can track and trace them, and so on and so forth. Because that's really all it's about, right? To establish this NWO, right, and get the masses to take this charagma, right? Because they're saying, you know, as JD Vance has said, right, if you want to be in America, right, then you got to leave and then come back through the proper channels. And well, that proper channel is ultimately going to be, you know, a device, right, is going to be offered, because again, they want to be able to control or track who comes in to the United States. That's what this whole thing is about, right? They made this whole thing, you know, what is that statement, right? Esau got a statement, problem, reaction, solution, right? Esau created a problem, right? He gets, you know, the reaction from the people, and then he comes in with this solution, right? And it's all based off of, you know, protecting, you know, the nation, right? Protecting, you know, the lifestyle of the American people, and so on and so forth, right? Because what happened is he started going around and nabbing up these, you know, or first it started with him, having all these migrants coming across the border, right? And it was a free-for-all. Everybody was coming in, right? Everybody was coming in, and what was happening, right? They started pointing out different crimes that were being committed, you know. So Esau opened up the floodgates, right? Going back to Biden, right? They opened up the floodgates, allowed the people to come in. They started to basically point out the different crimes and whatnot that were being committed, right? And then sat there and was like, hey, well, you know, we gotta get rid of these people, you know, because they're committing crimes. Started sitting here using the ICE agents, you know, and they were nabbing people up at their own, you know, immigration, you know, meetings and court dates and whatnot. So it stopped people from coming to the court dates, you know. And then what happened, right? They're saying, oh, well, they're not coming to the court dates. They're not coming to the court dates. We don't know where they're at. We don't know this, that, and the third. And that's when they started going around and scanning retinas and putting, you know, bracelets and whatnot on the immigrants, right? That they were nabbing up, you know. And at the same time, those who, you know, they nabbed up, they were also thrown into these, you know, alligator Alcatraz and so on and so forth. Right. So there's a whole bunch of it, you know, there's a whole bunch going on right now, man. And again, we're looking at the fulfillment of 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter and the 16th chapter, you know, as we're reading. Right. But again, all roads lead to the MO to the TB. Right. This is what Esau's whole agenda is. Right. I'll continue on, right? 2nd Esdras 16 and verse 69, and they shall consent unto them. It's like, and they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot, right? Because Esau gonna kill you anyways, right? Esau has a perpetual hatred for you Israelites, right? You so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? As well as you Israelite foreigners. And this is why you are and we are the main targets, right? For the crime that's being done, and the main targets for the ICE agents, man. You don't see them coming at, you know, these so-called Asians, right? The Chinese and so on and so forth that came across the border. They're not coming at the Afghanists, the Iranians, and so on, the Ishmaelites, really the so-called Arabs. They're not coming after them. They're only coming after the so-called Hispanics, man, the northern tribes. And eventually, right, they're going to be coming after both, which I think they're coming after the Somalis now, which, you know, those are so-called Africans, you know, but nonetheless, right, they're darker skin, you know. And we know Esau's racist as hell. He'll sit there and be like, oh, well, we can't tell the difference. You know, we can't tell if you're, you know, you know, because you got Jake out here calling themselves African American. You know, and that's how they're going to play it. That's how they're going to play it, man. You know, oh, we can't tell the difference. Y'all all look the same. You know, like Esau's been doing, man. he going to come for both, right? The northern and the southern tribes, man. You know, right now it's just mainly the northern tribe, but he going to come for everybody. You know, and Esau hates you. So even if you do take the charagma, he gonna kill your ass, man. Because we're not a part of, the Israelites are not a part of his NWO. He wants to get rid of Israel as a whole, man, right? Because he wants his birthright, right? He wants to be able to have that birthright. He wants to be able to have everlasting life and everlasting rulership. This is what it's been about, that birthright, man, So, this is why we say, hey, don't take the charagma, right? Don't consent unto this damn devil, no matter the situation he puts you in. But we'll keep reading, right? Verse 70, it says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. So again, going door to door, right? Everywhere, right? Going door to door, seeing if you're American or not, and they don't care, At this point, they don't care, right? We've seen videos, again, over in Chicago, right? You can't tell me that every single one of them people was, a so-called illegal immigrant, You can't, not everybody was, right? Because you even had people that were coming out with their own testimony saying, hey, they were, bringing out the kids, damn near half naked, so on and so forth, right? You had people that were a part of that situation, right, that were ultimately released, right? Those are American citizens, and they were snatching them up, right? Handcuffing them, right? Mistreating them in the middle of the fucking night, man. When they were fucking half asleep. And see, that's how Esau moves, right? We've seen what happened in Venezuela. He did that shit 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, So this damn devil moves under the cover of night. It says they shall be like madmen, sparing none. They don't care. That dude did not have to kill that woman. He was not seriously injured. His life was not at risk. It's because he wanted to. When you look at those videos, he didn't have to kill that woman, but yeah, again, he wanted to, right? That burning wrath of a great multitude, right? Just waiting, to pull them triggers, man. And again, they're not going to care. They're not going to care if you're old, if you're young, right? They're not going to care if you have a baby in your arms. They're going to rip that baby out, probably, throw the baby on the ground or some shit like that, man. These Edomites are the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. They're fucking evil, man. And we're going to see that evil, right? That's within inside of them, man. And it's going to be brought out real soon. And it's going to be brought out on such a level that we've never seen before. It says, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses, right? Because you're going to have a lot of people when they go to door, they're going to have a lot of people that are going to be snatched up, and put in these, these isolation facilities like Alligator Alcatraz, or, ones that they're going to ultimately make, right? Like, I think they were talking about right after Alligator Alcatraz, they were talking about Bear Alcatraz over there in Alaska, which you got a lot of Gadites out there, man. So you best believe they're going to be making, and I think FEMA was ultimately awarded like $600 million or something like that to build these different facilities. We haven't heard nothing of that since they got that, the finances, right? We haven't heard nothing of them building anything, right? It's because they're doing it behind scenes. And when you got all these ICE agents rounding these people up, then we're going to start hearing about it. Then we're going to start hearing about all these different facilities and whatnot that they got built, that have been built. We're in some very beautiful times according to prophecy, man, right? But very dangerous time for the average person. It says, then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire, right? Because at the end of the day, right, this hour of temptation is just that, right? A trial of one's faith. Right? You go into that word temptation, it goes back to what? It goes back to test or the trial, right? And everyone's faith is going to be tested in that time, right? Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, everyone's faith is going to be tested in that time. But see, the elect of the nation of Israel are the ones that are going to be protected, right? As we read in Isaiah 59 and verse 19, just hitting the point, it says, so shall they fear the name of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai shall lift up a standard against him. Against who? Against the enemy, which would be Esau, Edom. Right? For the elect, the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai is going to raise up that standard, meaning he's going to protect them. Well, even King David, you know, godly, right? It's Psalms 18 and verse, it says, the sorrows, in verse 4, the sorrows of death compass me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. And we're going to see an influx of ICE agents, you know, being hired even more than they are now, right? And again, they're going to be going door to door, right? You got a lot of officers, regular police officers, that are ultimately being federalized, right, and or being issued or placed on a federal unit, if you will, right? Being given, you know, ICE uniforms, whatnot, pay raise, so on and so forth, man, right? Basically being, you know, transferred, you know, from regular police into the, you know, into, you know, being an ICE agent, man, you know? So you got a lot of that transition happening, and this is why you don't see, at least here in Arizona, I haven't been seeing a whole lot of cops, man, like at all. I haven't seen a whole lot at all, and that's because, again, you got a lot of these cops are leaving the force and going straight to being an ICE agent, man. You know, because now they're gonna, you know, now they're being given that, you know, that that leeway to be able to shoot people, man. You know, they're being given immunity, you know, to go out here and commit, you know, a blatant murder, you know, and getting away with it, which they were already doing, right? But then you have, you know, situations like Derek Chauvin, who killed George Floyd. So as a police officer, they were still able to be tried and whatnot. No, as a federal agent, right, you got federal protection, which is a lot greater than, you know, being protected, you know, by just the state. You know, they're being federally backed at that point, man. You're doing a federal bidding, you know, in you know, for protection of the United States, you know, way of life, or, you know, whatever type shit they're gonna fucking say, man. You know? But see, again, the Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to protect the elect when all this happens. You know, let me drop down. It says right here, verse 17, and again, this is the words of King David, man. And these are things that we got to continue to meditate upon, man. Romans 15:4, the things that are written aforetime were written for our learning, right? We've read time and time again that, you know, our forefathers, they continue to trust and believe in Yahweh Shemel Shai in the times of trouble, and the Lord delivered them, right? Let me jump to this. Psalms 22 and verse 4, it says, our fathers trusted in thee, they trusted, and thou didst deliver them. They cried unto thee and were delivered. They trusted in thee and were not confounded. So again, we got to continue to meditate upon, you know, the grace and the mercy and the majesty of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and His only beloved begotten Son, you know, and to hope in it, you know, to hope in His mercy, to hope in His judgments, you know, His righteous judgments, you know, all the way into the end. This is Psalms 18 and verse 17. It says, He delivered me from my strong enemy, right? And again, Esau's too strong for us, man. You know, his blessing is a sword. We don't, you know, our blessing is going to be in the kingdom, which we didn't get a blessing of any kind of weapon, you know, right? Like the sword, which is a modern day gun in all its different forms, the tanks, the jets, the, you know, 50 cows and all this other, we didn't get none of that, man. These dudes, right? Direct energy weapons. That's not our blessing, right? Our blessing, right, is to trust and believe and have faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua and their words, right? And to live in them, you know, and to receive those promises. You know, that's our blessing. And to rule in the kingdom to come. That's our blessing, right? We are at the lowest state possible in this current, you know, situation we're in the current scenario. Right? This is why we have to trust in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because we can't save ourselves. You know, scriptures say, you know, that a strong man is not delivered by his own strength, roughly paraphrasing. Right? I think that's Psalms 33 and 16, if I'm not mistaken. You know? Matter of fact, let's verify that right quick. Psalms 33. Yeah, verse 16, it says, there is no king saved by the multitude of an host, A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. So we can't protect ourselves, right? We can go to the gym and we can sit here and, get pumped up and whatnot, and, and learn martial arts and all this other shit. But it's the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushua that's going to deliver us, right? Not those skills that we attain, not the strength that we attain, not the discipline that we attain. It's Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. All those things are definitely a benefit, and we should all strive to, achieve those things, right? Especially discipline, The brother, not to go off, man, but the brother, Tazar, man, here in the camp, beautiful brother, man, very powerful brother, but he even said, he made a statement. I'm pretty sure he got the statement or the quote from somebody else, but, I can't remember who, but he said, discipline, will take you further than motivation, right? When motivation fails, discipline kicks in, When motivation fails, discipline won't. So, hey, those are all things that we should strive to achieve, right? It's not wicked to learn, some martial arts. It's not wicked, to be more disciplined. It's not wicked, to learn some type of skill to protect yourself or whatnot. But see, it's not those things that are going to deliver us. It's Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, which is why we have to trust and believe in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, especially in these times. Let me go back. Right, Psalms 18 and verse 17 again, it says, he delivered me from my strong enemy and from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me, right? Esau way too strong for us, man. But he's not too strong for Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It says, they prevented me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua was my stay. It says, he brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. That's right, man. So again, we have to continue to trust and believe in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, especially in these times. Because Esau about to come down having great wrath, Revelations 12 and 12. Because he knows he has but a short time. He ain't got too much time. Everything's heating up, right? Domestically, internationally, right? America's being exposed, right, on all levels, right? And this is why, Esau is, ultimately causing, havoc outside and inside of America, because his wickedness is being exposed, right? So he's got to move quick. He's got to move quick. The Epstein files and whatnot still haven't been released, but he don't want nobody to focus on that. He don't want none of that information being out, So he's, ultimately creating all these different distractions, which is at the same time furthering his NWO, killing two birds with one stone, But really it's Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Proverbs 21:1, the hands of the Lord, or the mind of these kings are in the hand of the Lord, and he turneth to whithersoever he will, roughly paraphrasing, right? So it's the Lord that's doing this, speeding things up, But let me go back to 2nd Esdras 16 and verse 74. It says, hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, behold, the days of trouble are at hand. And we're in Jacob's trouble, right? It's only just going to continue to get worse, right? It says, but I will deliver you from the same, right? Those that trust and believe in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua are going to be delivered, going to be protected, It says, be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High is your guide, right? And the guide of them who keep my commandments and precepts, saith the Lord power. Let not your sins weigh you down, and let not your iniquities lift up themselves. So, hey, man, we're in some very trying times. Again, continue to trust and believe in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, right? Because that's how we're going to get out of here, right? Through our faith, right? Or Romans 8 and verse 24, Ephesians 2 and 8, It's through our faith and trust and belief in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua how we're going to get out of here, man. There's no other way, right? We can't save ourselves, right? Esau damn sure don't want to save us. He want to kill us, So what are we to do? There's only one option, and that's to trust, believe, and have faith, and to fear Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, especially in these times. So with that, Lord wills, edifying, Lord will, straight to the point, I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Rachak Kodash, that belongs to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.